Good evening. Welcome to the JEDO meeting of May 8th. The meeting has begun, and we now go to the clerk to do the roll call.
Mayor Michelle de la Isla.
Here.
Commissioner Rippon.
Here.
Commissioner Cook.
Present.
Commissioner Archer.
Here.
Councilmember Hiller. Deputy Mayor Claire. Councilmember Ortiz.
Here.
Councilmember Emerson.
Here.
Councilmember Padilla.
Here.
Councilmember Jensen.
Present.
Councilmember Mays.
Here.
Councilmember Cohen.
Here.
And Councilmember Lesser.
Here.
So I did want to excuse two of the council members who are not present today. Deputy Mayor is not feeling very well today, and she's not able to make it today. And Councilwoman Hiller is doing the heroic work of getting us ready for the Brown v. Board events. If you are not aware of the great things that are happening in our community with these activities, I encourage you to just take a look at what's happening, because there's a lot that we're celebrating in our community. We move on to item 3, action items. Action item A, if the clerk would read.
A is approval of February 13, 2019 JEDO Board meeting minutes and March 27, 2019 JEDO Board special meeting minutes.
We have received the minutes prior to the meeting. Certain that everybody here has had the opportunity to look over them. If there's no questions or corrections with regards to the minutes, we have a motion by Councilmember Lesser, a second by Councilmember Emerson. At this point in time, if there's no discussion on this item, we proceed with the roll call for the vote.
Mayor de la Isla.
Yes.
Commissioner Rippon. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Cook.
Yes.
Commissioner Archer.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Claire, she's absent.
That's me.
Councilmember Emerson
Yes.
and Councilmember Lesser.
Mayor?
Yes.
That's me.
Oh, you're the proxy.
Yep, I'm here
Oh,
for her.
Councilmember Cohen.
Yeah, it'd be yes, thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to item B of the agenda, if the clerk would read.
B is approval of Project Blueberry Incentive Agreement.
Good evening. I'm excited to be able to have the company with us tonight and to be able to talk a little bit more about Project Blueberry. This project contract is before you and in your packet, and it aligns with the funding approval that you all approved at the March special meeting. And so thank you for those of you that were able to be nimble with your schedule to accommodate the company's needs. Before I introduce the company, I just want to say a little bit about them and how blessed we are to have them in our community. Companies like this are few and far between, and to be able to land a company like this and see the expansions that we have from this company is something that other communities across the nation and across the world covet. So with that, I will ask Brent Spangler to come to the podium and address the board.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Some new faces I don't think I've met. So I'm Brent Spangler. I'm the site director out at the Mars Wrigley facility here in Topeka. So first of all, thanks for all the attention you put towards this and the flexibility as far as that's concerned. It came through rather quickly, but it's just a continuation of all the things you want to do. So really for this one, I just want to say thank you for the continued support and really appreciate your support within the community. We'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing with Project Blueberry in the later agenda items. Okay.
At this point in time, do we have any questions for Ms. Howie or for Mr. Spangler? Seeing none, we have, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion for approval by Commissioner Archer. We have a second by Councilman Lesser. Additional comments or questions with regards to this incentive agreement? Seeing none, we proceed by voting through the roll call.
Mayor de la Isla.
Yes.
Commissioner Rippon.
Yes.
Commissioner Cook.
Yes.
Commissioner Archer.
Aye.
Councilmember Cohen.
Yes.
Councilmember Emerson.
Yes.
Councilmember Lesser.
Yes.
7 yes.
7 having voted yes, the motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
At this point, we move on to the next item, item D, item C, if the clerk would read.
Approval of Project Purple funding.
Okay, so Purple is back. We came before you with a partial project, and the company decided they would like to add a capital investment amount to that project. So we have the full project before you tonight to consider for funding approval, and that's $9 million in capital investment with 220 new jobs with an average wage of $52,000. So I just want to let that sit for a second, because I think sometimes we don't celebrate our existing businesses as much as we do the new ones. So if this were a new company coming in with 220 new jobs and a new company, be front page news and everyone would be celebrating. So I think we need to do the same thing with our existing businesses here. So the project and all the details around their incentives are outlined in a memo in your packet, but the total is up to $1.5 million in incentives, $1,490,000 in incentives. Those are all performance-based, as always, and those incentives are based on employee headcount, investment, and training. So I would stand for any questions with regards to Project Purple.
Any questions for Ms. Howie? Commissioner Archer?
No.
Oh, you had your hand up. Pardon me.
I was taking it.
Any questions for Ms. Howie in regards to this incentive package? Seeing none? What is the pleasure of the body? We have a motion for approval by Councilman Lesser. We have a second by Councilmember Emerson. Again, want to allow the opportunity for any of you to have questions, comments about this exciting news of 200 jobs in the city. Okay, seeing no other comments or questions, we proceed with the vote by roll call.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Commissioner Rippon,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Archer,
Aye.
Councilmember Cohen,
Yes.
Councilmember Emerson,
Yes.
and Councilmember Lesser.
Yes.
7 yes.
7 had voted yes. The motion passes.
Okay.
We now,
Oh, go ahead.
we now move on to item D in the agenda, if the clerk would read.
D is approval of reallocation of Mars incentive funds originally allocated for construction of a firehouse and authorizing JEDO Chair to execute amendment to original agreement dated July 27, 2011.
Okay, as the clerk noted and as written in your packet, the original contract with Mars from 2011 had a very narrow focus on where the property tax abatement funding should be focused. And that was narrowly with Firehouse at Cons of Fire and sustainability improvements at the Cons of Fire Commerce Park. We've had a lot of discussions with city staff over about the past year with regards to the need for a firehouse, and with city staff's recommendation that they've got mutual aid agreements and assistance with not only the 190th but MTAA, we've come to the conclusion that there's not a need for a firehouse at this point. So been talking with Mars, and they have tossed around a multitude of different ideas for how they'd like to reinvest that money. And we're fortunate that Mars wants to reinvest this money into the community. You see a lot of other companies that receive property tax abatement, and we don't know where they're spending their money. I'm sure they're doing what's best for their business, but we're fortunate that Mars is looking at what's best for not only Mars, but the community as a whole. So what they're asking for tonight is to simply give Mars the freedom to reinvest that money, get it out of the bank and into the community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brent to provide some more context.
The presentation.
Yeah, there.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, good evening again. So just a little more background. So I mentioned I'm a site director out in Topeka. I've actually been on Mars for about 32 years. So a 32-year Martian. I started at a very young age. But anyway, 32 years with the business, and today is one of those days that just reinforces why I stayed for 32 years, and I will continue my career with Mars. And it's really about the 5 principles you see up on the screen, basically: the quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and freedom. I think tonight we talked mostly about mutuality and responsibility. I think Molly hit the nail on the head with the very first commitments that we made within the agreements and everything else. We took a responsibility to make sure we're giving back to the community, and we wanted to be mutual in what we were doing, because we did receive a very nice incentive program, and we want to make sure that we give back. Along with that, as we continue to grow the business and make decisions based on those 5 principles, one thing that we keep as a Mars Incorporated vision really is that quote you see up there today: the world we want tomorrow starts with how we do business today. I think tonight's recommendation really falls into those arms, because it's really about what we want to see within the Topeka community, but also just what we want to be able to do as we grow our company as well. So if we kind of turn back time a little bit, there were a couple of commitments we made back in 2011. I think some of them are pretty obvious around what we wanted to do, but one was the tax abatement dollars. We wanted to make sure that we were investing back into the Cons of Fire Industrial Park. We wanted to make sure we're taking care of the neighbors as they came in. We also wanted to make sure that as we came into the community, we made a huge commitment into the downtown area as well. So at that point in time, we donated about $250,000, and that was the initial push into the downtown. And we still feel strongly about quality of life for our associates. That's something that's very important to us. Our associates are our greatest asset, and we continue to thrive because of them. And I think as you talk about thrive, if you look at that screen right there, 8 years passed and over $500 million invested is incredible. What's really important is you start to talk about when we opened up the doors in 2014, we had two lines. We had Snickers and we had peanut M&Ms. We've since grown that with another investment of $100 million, and that's our M&M's caramel line. Talk about iconic brands. That was the largest M&M's launch ever in the history of the brand, and actually was bigger than anything in the category at the time as well. So a huge accomplishment. And then shortly thereafter, just to keep us busy there in the Topeka facility, we decided we're going to start up a Twix line as well. So again, another $60 million investment, another 70 associates walk in the door. So we've now created 425 Martians in the Topeka community over an 8-year period of time, and truly met our commitment that we had made back in 2011. So we want to continue to make sure we continue those commitments. We do everything we need to do. The Project Blueberry we talked about earlier, I can tell you with all those investments and all those associates, the place is full. There isn't a whole lot of space left in that building out there, and it's close to 600,000 square foot. So now what we're doing is taking some of these investment dollars and actually putting them into the capability of the lines. So you can see on the far left of that screen, that's what we started with, was M&M's Peanut and Snickers. And that's just continued to grow with the flavor votes on peanut M&Ms. We're adding flavor to Snickers now. We're making a Snickers without any nuts in it, the Snickers Extreme. So it's really just driving the capability of the lines and also the capability of associates as we continue to bring in new technologies. So our Project Blueberry dollars that you just talked about a few minutes ago will actually introduce a couple more new products, which you can't talk about right now, of course. But we'll add that to that 2019 and 2020 slide, and we'll just continue to grow those products. And of course, the unique thing about some of these products, white chocolate peanut, M&M's caramel being a couple examples, we are the only place globally that make those. So Topeka is special when it comes to the Mars Wrigley brands and what we want to do, but with our iconic brands. So certainly a special place in our heart. Within the brands is Mars Topeka. As we continue to go into what we're trying to do to make sure we're a great partner in the community, you can see a lot of examples of the different things we're doing in the community. And it's just the way that in Mars in general, every one of our sites around the U.S. can probably give you just as many examples as what I've given right here around the Boo Downtown, the Chocolate Festival. I can tell you that's very unique to Topeka. I don't know if any other site is doing that. But also the mural we did at the Kansas Historical Society and the amount of traffic that drove within that. So we want to continue to give back within the community and do what we need to do. And I think what we're talking about tonight really is continuing on some of that work. So the recommendation we have is, as Molly lined out earlier basically, is to be able to reallocate those funds that we currently have sitting in that Cons of Fire account and put it on 3 different areas. One is we want to continue to hold some dollars back for the future development of the Cons of Fire Industrial Park. That was our initial commitment. We want to continue to maintain that. More importantly, we want to focus on workforce development. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. And then finally, the last one will be around the quality of life investments. And if I look at these 3 bullets, there's one that stands out as the overall priority, and that is workforce development. That's an area that not only impacts Mars, but also impacts every one of our employers around the area. And it's been a bit of a struggle as we've tried to hire 425 associates. I can tell you we have a higher turnover rate than most, and we're trading talent between ourselves, Frito, Bimbo, Goodyear. We're not actually developing the workforce that we need to continue the economic development we need and be successful in bringing in some of these new companies. That's why the largest portion of all the dollars that we have will go towards workforce development. And you can see a couple of the examples of STEM-focused support within the technical colleges and in the high schools. The earlier we can get them in school, the better off we're going to be. So that'll be our main focus, is really there. Second to that will be around the Cons of Fire future development. So the next highest portion will actually stay in that bucket, so we can actually make sure that our neighbors are taken care of when they actually do move into the area. And then finally, quality of life investments. We want to continue to build that quality of life for our associates, but also for our visitors. We have a higher degree of visitors than most because of all the investment and everything else. I can tell you just the example last week, I think I went to 6 different events across the entire community on teams that were meeting at some of our newest facilities, Iron Rail, Pennant, Cyrus, down at the Moose, at the historical, Harley Historical Store. So put on a lot of miles, meeting with a lot of different groups around the community, but we're really trying to make sure we stay active in the community. Our site itself has 40 different teams that meet quarterly outside of our building, and they're using every one of these facilities. So we want to make sure we're giving back to the community to make sure we have these great facilities to operate in. So I'll close out by saying your continued support has been great. It's been a collaboration that we always said, the reason we came to Topeka wasn't because of the incentives, wasn't because of the property or anything else. It was about the culture that we have in the community. And I continue to thank all of you for your support within the community.
Brent, thank you so much for everything that you guys continue doing in our community and your just partnership and love for the community. We often talk about people that don't want to live in our city, and you are one of those people that lives right here in our county and are constantly in here supporting a lot of our establishments because I run into you often.
Absolutely.
So at this point in time, I do want to pause and allow some time for the body to ask any questions of Mr. Spangler. Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to echo the comments and thank you. I do have one question, though. Do you all make left Twix or right Twix?
Yes, depending on which way you're looking at the left.
Excellent. Thank you again for your commitment to our
Absolutely,
community. It's
thank
been a
you.
pleasure partnering with you.
Serious questions now.
That was pretty serious.
Commissioner Archer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How much are we talking about spending, and what's the allocation? And when you say quality of life, specifically, what are you talking about, Brett?
Yeah, I can't speak specific to the numbers because we are still actually working out between stakeholders as well as our company how we'll actually allocate it. But we've got percentage allocations that tell us the largest majority is going to go towards workforce development, but I can't talk the specific dollars tonight. But we want to get this in front of everyone to make sure we're taking a look at whether we can even move the money or not. Once we know that we can do that, then we'll start talking about specific dollars.
Well, shouldn't we wait until we see those dollars before we approve this? I mean, for the purpose of openness and transparency to the public and taxpayers, shouldn't we actually see where the money's going, how much is going out, and for what purpose before we approve this? Doesn't that make sense?
In our mind, basically what we're approving is the ability to move those dollars. Those are dollars that we've put into the community, so we have the right to choose where we invest those dollars. So that's why we're saying that the biggest decision we need in this body is to be able to amend that contract. If we can't amend the contract, the dollars will stay right there, and we'll choose to spend it on the cons of fire development if we need to.
I don't have problems amending the contract. I think for, again, openness and transparency, we should see first where the money's going to be spent. If you were to say we're going to spend it all on workforce development, we're going to give scholarships to disadvantaged students, we're going to get involved in the high schools and so on, we're going to spend all our money that way, I think that would be great. And I think you would get full support from everybody. But not knowing how much and what the allocation is going to be, we had a problem in December with quality of life issues that were not well documented and were not credible in my view. So that's the problem I have, and I hope you understand.
Yeah, I absolutely understand,
Okay.
but at this time, we're not prepared to talk to the dollars.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Cook.
Before we even get to that point, though, Brett, isn't it really the position of Mars that this is money that was set aside for a fire station? There's no need for a fire station. This money is Mars. Give it back to us, and we're going to spend it. We're going to probably put it in these areas, but this is our money. You should not restrict us on how we spend our money. This isn't your money.
Yeah, I think our focus really is in these 3 areas, right? So that's the biggest thing. We want to have some guiding principles around how we spend the money. But yes, it is actually Mars money. We just want to make sure we're taking input from the community on how best to spend those dollars within these 3 areas.
So with that being said, it would be the position of Mars that it really should not be the position of the city or the county or go to Topeka or JEDO to tell how this money would be allocated, but rather it would be the sole and exclusive decision of Mars.
That should be the case, yes.
And that's your request.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. With all due respect, Commissioner Cook, this was a commitment that they made. I'm disappointed because we have been talking about our fire stations, and as council members, that's never been brought that we don't need that station. We're still in negotiations with that station. And this is an incentive that they gave Topeka to grow there. And I think I would hate to see my colleagues approve this without thorough discussion from the council and voting from the council before we would even do anything like that. I appreciate your transparency, but this is a commitment that they made when they came to build, that they said that they wanted to build that station there. And that's a commitment that they made. So if we go back through every contract and say, well, it's our money, we're not going to do that, that's a commitment that they made on the first agreement. And so I would just like us I'd like to see more of that. I would like to know how we're using the workforce development and STEM program. How are you doing interviews now? How could it be better done, Brett? I'm hearing of young people, including my daughter. Now, she agreed to transfer to Atlanta, but I had some other people that they don't like. I'm sorry, they don't like your hours. You know. So, is there other things that we can do to keep people here, to promote them, to keep them here? And I've had some other young people say, I'm out of here. They've transferred to other places. So I would like to know about that. Also, you mentioned the quality of life. I would just like to know what that entails, you know, other than just the quality of life. But to my colleagues, I'm very disappointed to hear this firsthand, that we've talked to city staff and we feel like we no longer need it when we need to look at studies, and we've got some studies to do. That disappoints me, because that's never come before the council, that we've agreed that we don't need that. And if it's come from staff, that's very embarrassing. Thank you, Brett.
Commissioner Cook.
To respond to your comments, Councilwoman Ortiz, I was not advocating for Mars' position or against it, but rather to clarify that it was their belief that this is their money. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on their position and their request, is that it's their money. Not that I'm agreeing with them or disagreeing, but just to make sure that I'm clear as to their request. Thank you.
Additional, Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. You about gave me a promotion there. But, first of all, Mr. Spangler, thank you for everything that you and Mars have done for our community.
Absolutely.
So I hope you don't take our comments tonight as any slight to you guys. It's just that this has been a surprising development for some of us who've been in discussions with our staff about, like, the firehouse, for instance. That said, kind of to Commissioner Cook's earlier point, when I'm reading this, it looks like this is paid in as a property tax abatement. They got a certain abatement, so they agreed to pay 10%, basically a pilot fee, right, payment in lieu of taxes somewhat. And it's paid to Go Topeka, so it's Go Topeka actually has, it looks to me like, control of these funds, correct? Isn't that?
Yes.
That's true, yes. Yeah, it is.
Okay. So once these funds are there, they're given to Go Topeka, they're transferred, and effectively Go Topeka owns them. Is that?
That's true. If this agreement is amended, which it will need to be, then the three parties will have to sign off: JEDO, Go Topeka, and Mars.
And the agreement we've talked about is Mars has full decision rights on where those dollars go.
Okay. And that may be somewhere in here. I'm sorry, I don't see that in here, but, and it may very well be. I didn't catch that, so thank you. I will echo what Commissioner Archer said. I will probably have no problem with the way you want to allocate this, but I think, again, in transparency, that's one of the things we get beat up about, is transparency. And I would like to see something come back to us with those proposed allocations, please, before we actually commit to doing it.
Good.
Thank you.
Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. So is your intent in asking tonight that if this doesn't get approved, then there's no reason for you all to expend company resources to sort out exactly how and why and the legality of doing so and developing the partnerships and everything that has to happen actually to deploy the funds if there's no chance that it would get approved.
Exactly.
I think that's a fairly reasonable business decision from your perspective. So with that, I mean, I'm not a voting member this year, but I would challenge my colleagues up here to give them the nod to begin the process of figuring all this out. Otherwise, we're asking a private business to expend quite a bit of time and resources on the off chance that we would approve or disapprove something. So this seems like a very prudent business question to ask to me. If we're not going to allow them to do this, there's no reason for them to spend the money to figure out how to do it. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner Cook?
it really is not a question for Brett, but maybe a question for the city manager who's present. I've not seen an actual document or memorandum from the city indicating that there is no need for the fire station. And so before we take the position of determining, while I trust Mr. Spangler's position and I trust Goodrich staff that that's the case, perhaps it would be prudent for the city manager to actually make a public declaration that there is no need for the fire station before we even take the step of reallocating those funds or considering reallocating those funds.
City Manager, would you like to step forward?
Good evening. For us, our current analysis, we're working on what we want to do with our next fire station, which was approved by the City Council. We have a designated area that we're looking at in the northwest corner. We did our analysis also looking at what areas aren't covered in the southern part. We had a lot of concern because we are looking at about 5 years or better before we would consider the next fire station. As we looked at that, we thought that we could get an agreement with the folks at the National Guard facility that have assets there that we could contract with, work with them with a agreement, and that mutual aid agreement would allow us to have the coverage we need for that individual area. We have some concerns regarding the water pressure. We are looking at a water tower that was approved within the capital improvement budget. So that is our first concern, which we talked to Mars about as a possibility that they would assist us in funding that water tower. So for us, the fire station has become less important with the agreement that we have. And so for us, a long-term, the thing that I like is they aren't getting rid of the Kansas fire station possibility. That is something that's still included. So we would look at maybe there is a period of time that if there's an amount that they want to dedicate out of the total funds that they have, that they would do so. We wanted to keep that in, and glad to see that it is there. But the actual need for a fire station we don't feel is there for that particular part of the community. There are small parts, the area where the industrial park is, the Heartland Park area, and then a couple areas like Rockfire and also Lawrence Bay that are not covered by any type of fire coverage. But this station in the southern part that would relate to the Kansas Fire District wouldn't be covered by those two. So we're really only looking about the industrial area and trying to partner with the National Guard folks in order to be able to cover that area, and we've accomplished that at this point in time. So we're not leaning towards the need for another $6.5 to $7 million expenditure in order to build a fire station. But by having it in there and depending on how it's actually worked, we may be able to, actually they could help with that depending on how much they're looking at putting towards those other entities.
So if I may ask a question just for clarification. So what we're saying is there has not been a determination that we don't need a fire station. What we're doing in effect is our CIP and CIB only are for 3 years running, and we're constantly approving them. Our Station 13, which is the next one that we should be building, is not even currently in the plans, and what you're saying is that we're forecasting into the future. Station 14, which would be the next station that would be built on that south side, isn't really in sights, and we have all these funds. We're trying to be efficient and partner while we come with the plan that the body's going to have. So there really hasn't been any determination. What you're saying is we're trying to be as efficient, and it's not on our sites right now. So we're trying to deal with the money that we have in front of us at this point in time.
Right. It'll be 2 years before the next station is completed, more than likely by the time we get construction done, 1.5 years. And then we would probably in about 5 years, maybe 6 would be the earliest that you would see another fire station back into the budget for serious consideration. If indeed we want to go that way, it's very expensive for us to open a new fire station. I'm not sure that with our current budget situation, that is a viable possibility at this point.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager. I would just like to say, we have property at 6th and Fairlawn that we had to give back because we didn't start building because the council couldn't agree. And so we lost that. And so here's another opportunity. You were on there, weren't you? Yep, right. And we couldn't agree. And our agreement, it was up, time was up. And so they came along. It depends on what study you want to listen to. You know, everybody has their own little study. We haven't even agreed on a study. So I don't understand how we can say, well, I understand we're not ready to build, and it's going to cost us a lot more if they pull out all their money. And that's one of the reasons why I was so happy when we approved that in here. So the study that I'm looking at says we need a fire station at 6th and Fairlawn, which it's hot over here in District 9, and we need one out south. And I think Mars looked at that when they came in, and they agreed with that, and they understood that, just like we as JEDO members did. And so that's where my argument comes from.
One of the
City
things that I'll
Manager.
say related to the 6th and Fairlawn area, I mean, we have talked to landowners in that area, and we have sites that we can utilize that we've already had initial discussions with in order to be able to secure that. And then the May 21st meeting, we're going to be presenting to the governing body related to that location of that fire station, the data that we have that shows that that's the right location for our next fire station. And so we'll be presenting that. It would have been presented earlier, but for other things that were on the agenda. So we're prepared to do that on the 21st and provide the justification for that particular location.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
What I'm
yes.
saying is, we had the land, we already had half of it, all we had to do was build.
Yeah.
Now we've got to go back, and we've got to get land, and we've got to buy land, and we got to blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. That's what I'm saying, it was there, and we couldn't come to agreement because the council members need to take a hard stance. We're either going to do it or we're not going to do it.
Sure.
And we need to push forward or not push forward, and staff doesn't need to assume what we're going to do. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Commissioner Cook.
Body, I'm deeply troubled that I don't want to offend our good corporate partner, Mars. I don't want to make them unhappy with, we're very happy to have them in the community. We view them as a partner, and I don't want to take any action tonight that would make them feel that they're not a partner. But at the same time, I wonder if this measure tonight is ready for us to take action on. It would seem to me that we may have a procedural issue that the city council should first take action to vote that the firehouse is not needed. As a voting member of JEDO, I would feel far more comfortable if the city body took a formal vote that the firehouse was not needed. That's a clear signal to Mars that that money then could be used for something else. And so you're asking the county to weigh in on whether a city fire station is needed or not. And I'm sure that there's probably some city council members that don't want the county telling you how to run your business. So perhaps maybe tonight we should defer action and come back at a later JEDO meeting to allow the city to formally vet that there is not a need for the fire station, so that you can come back to this body and say, we have made formal action that it's not needed. And then we can move forward with Mars as to how they could reallocate or reinvest that money into our community. Thank you.
Was that a motion to
That's what I was going to ask. Thank you.
I am making a motion to defer any action on this item until the next JEDO meeting with the intent or hope, I should say, with the hope that the city of Topeka will take formal action on whether or not the fire station is needed or not, so that at the next JEDO meeting, we can proceed as to how that money can be reallocated back into our community. And again, not part of the motion, but thank you for your corporate partnership, Mars.
We have a motion and we have a second. Additional discussion on this deferral? Yes, Councilman Jensen.
So I would request somebody make a friendly amendment to that, that provided the city council votes that we don't need the fire station, that then Mars is free to pursue the reallocation process within the contractual obligation. Otherwise, we're going to have to come back again in months at a time and do a step anyway.
Madam Chair,
Absolutely, Commissioner Cook.
I think that if we come back at the next JEDO meeting and the city says, we agree, we've taken this up, we've debated this amongst ourselves, there's not a need for the fire station, then we get to step 2. Where's the money going to go? Is this Mars money or is this property tax money? And I think that's really the meat of what we're here to, and that gives us as members to look into this and to do a little bit more research so that when we come back, we're not taking this on cold.
Councilman Jensen.
Well, I appreciate that. The intent of the ask this evening is that the partner not waste a bunch of time and resources discussing reallocation options if the body is not going to approve it. So if there's no indication of how that's going to proceed, then they're not going to be able to use their resources wisely to go through the reallocation process. And please correct me if I'm wrong at all.
No, you're absolutely
I mean, the idea is if they don't know how to react, then they're going to waste a bunch of money if we're not going to approve it.
If I may respond.
Absolutely, Commissioner Cook.
Our next meeting is September the 11th. So we are talking about June, July, August, September, 4 months from now. This is $875,000 approximately that has been accumulated over the last 8 years. I don't know that 4 months is going to be so, I should back up, I would hope that our corporate sponsor or partner, Mars, would not feel that 4 months is an unreasonable amount of time to, again, 8 years, after 8 years of $875,000, whether 4 months would be an unreasonable delay.
If I could,
Councilman
I
Jensen.
agree with you. It's not the timing, it's to develop the reallocation process. They have to go out and spend a bunch of money and time to do so and develop partnerships and that sort of thing. So are you asking them to do that on the hope that we approve it or wait until after we make the decision, after the council makes the decision?
Commissioner Cook.
Why would that be any different than where we are right now?
Because we've asked them to come back and provide an exact allocation and the partnerships and how that would work.
Not
To be
yet.
clear, we would come back with this same recommendation.
Okay. So,
So I guess my question's not been answered, Madam Chair. So what I'm asking is, they've come to us and asked for the nod to begin the process of figuring out how to reallocate the money into the community. If we don't give them an answer on how they're going to do that at some point, then we're asking them to invest a bunch of time and resources to figure that out without knowing that they'll actually be able to do anything.
And
Commissioner Cook.
procedurally, looking to our council, you've made a request for a friendly amendment. Having considered it, I am not accepting your friendly amendment.
So there's a motion now on the table.
I'm not able to
Second.
make the
So
amendment.
exactly, there's a motion and it has been seconded.
Okay.
So at this point in time, we are having open discussion. Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Spangler, can you tell me, is there a time horizon that you need an answer on this?
No, we're just trying to get an answer on committing resources, much like we've been talking about, to actually work on how we would structure this, because it'll take some time to put all this together and make sure that we're managing it in the proper way. And I'm not going to dedicate resources unless I have a good indication
Sure.
that we're going to move forward.
Sure. Would you have a problem waiting until September to get this approval?
I don't have a problem. I don't know that the decision may change between now and then as to whether we even move forward with it or not, but not a problem with waiting.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Lesser.
Thank you. Brett, first off, I wanted to just thank you for everything you've done for our community, the partnership that we have, and on behalf of myself and in my capacity as a city council, I apologize for this tonight. I'm disappointed in what I feel like is us not doing our job and then bringing you into a situation where you are right now, and I apologize for that.
I appreciate that.
Well, on my behalf, I would just say, first of all, I appreciate the fact that Mars has made such a commitment to the city of Topeka. Mars could have gone anywhere, and they chose this city. And not only have they chosen this city, but they have continued to expand in this city, when I know that they have operations worldwide. And they have the ability to do what they're doing here anywhere else in the world. The other thing that I want us to keep in mind is the fact that this contract was signed 2011. And when that contract was signed, and this is going to be kind of harsh, because I mean, some of us haven't been here that long. The challenge is that this commitment was made that this fire station was going to be built in a time that was close to when this contract was signed. So the one thing that I want to remind all of us is that at some point in time, we also have failed to our responsibility of get that fire station going. And it's not based on, you know, one set of leadership or another for one reason or another, whether it was financial, whether it was we were still grappling with Station 13, which was a huge loss for us because we had the land for free, and we lost it because we couldn't, you know, get to a place of saying this is where we're wanting our stations. But at some point in time, we do have to have the acknowledgement that we have not delivered on the other side of this compromise, which is, where's that station? I for one, I'm understanding, I understand absolutely the fact that you guys want to keep reinvesting the money in the community. You could very easily come and said, hey, we want to take these funds that are private funds from us that we have set aside. Yes, we're getting incentives, but those incentives are only being given to us once we show that we use the money. But we are still putting money aside as part of our contractual agreement. And instead of saying we want it back for the reinvestments that we're doing to include, to grow our plant, you're saying, hey, we want to give this back to the community again. So I think that that is extremely admirable. And I want to say thank you for that. I do feel that procedurally, there's some more conversations, and it's very clear tonight that we as a body are going to have to sit down and have a conversation amongst the city body before we come back with this. And again, like Councilman Lesser said, I am so sorry, but I hope that this does not dampen the spirit of joy that we have of the expansion that we just approved tonight, the fact that we are growing so many jobs, the fact that you guys are choosing Topeka over and over again because of the relationships that we have, and that value of mutuality that we have towards each other is something that I really cherish. So with that, I think that if there's no other comments, right now we have a motion and we have a second so that we could defer this until a later meeting. If there's no further comments, we will proceed with the roll call.
Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Commissioner Rippon?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Archer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cohen?
Yes.
Councilmember Emerson?
Yes.
And Councilmember Lesser?
Yes.
7 yes.
Having 7 yes, we are deferring this and we will re-engage in this exciting conversation for our community. At this point in time, I do want to take a break because we typically have like a little press conference in celebration of the jobs that we're growing in our city. So if we could all have a 10-minute recess, no more than 10-minute recess, to go out there and have a picture so that our guests can be on their way, that would be wonderful. So our recess starts now.